I'm a huge believer that you have to always point the finger at yourself first as a leader. Like, have I done everything? Have I communicated properly? Have I communicated consistently? Does this person actually know how to win in their role? And when you can answer yes to those three questions, then we're looking at the accountability plan. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver. And today we're going to be talking about the exact process on how to hold someone accountable.
I love that we're talking about this because what I'm hearing a lot in our industry is a focus on systems and processes. And I do understand the importance of systems and processes.
It's a buzzword right now. Processes and systems.
I'm hearing a lot of agents talk about that. But there's not a lot of conversation on how to hold somebody accountable to those processes and systems. Because if not, they're pieces of paper, they're SOPs, maybe they're video
that don't matter.
Logged but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
If you're not holding somebody accountable. So we're going to break down our process and what it looks like to hold somebody accountable.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because SOPs, we all want processes. They got to be documented, but man, if they're not being followed, what's the point of even having a process? Oh shit, you're getting me fired up over here just thinking about it. So how do we hold someone accountable?
Well, let's start with how often are we meeting with people?
Okay.
So on a regular basis, and we have other podcast episodes that we've broke these different things down. We are doing daily huddles. We're doing weekly one-on-ones. We're doing month-end review. We're looking at numbers and what happened in the month. And then we're doing quarterly and year-end reviews as well.
Yeah.
So we're meeting with our team on a pretty frequent basis. I'll repeat that again, just so if you're taking notes or maybe you're driving and you want to pause and write it down. There are 2 daily huddles a day. Quick hit, 15-minute, what we got going on, what we working on. Weekly one-on-ones with an individual person. Where you at? How's things going with the family? Okay. Then we're doing month-end review on, as a team, our numbers. What did we hit? Where did we fall short? What are we focused on? Are we still on track? What do we need to be investing in? Things like that. We're going to do same thing, only an extended format every quarter.
Yep.
And then we're going to do an even extended more version of that for the
planning.
year.
Yeah.
So we have to set that cadence first, because the thing that I notice a lot is leaders will let a scab fester. They will not draw attention. And what I mean a scab fester is a problem. There will be a problem in your office and you think, if I just don't look at it, maybe it'll heal itself. That's not how this works.
It's going to magically go away.
That's not how this works. This thing's going to get gangrene. You're going to have to cut your arm off. Okay. Oh. You got to pay attention to that. So I say that because there has to be that system already in place so that the employee even knows that there is an issue. A lot of times we wait until it's too far gone and we're ready to be like, you just need to leave. Yep. You need to get your stuff and leave.
Yeah.
And there could be some conversations that have happened before that. So first, let's talk about the 30, 60, and 90. Let's go into that. So when you first notice a problem.
The 3-strike rule. 3-strike rule. So the first 30 days, so I love that you're reiterating consistent communication, consistent meetings, daily huddles and one-on-ones. So the daily huddles, the weekly one-on-ones, I believe are the most important part of the process of holding someone accountable, because then there shouldn't be any issues of lack of clarity, lack of understanding, lack of expectation. So that's where the consistent communication comes in. And once there's a level of consistent communication, a level of consistent understanding, a level of consistent coaching and leadership, that's when the accountability conversation and process that we're talking about today should be had. What I don't want you to do is not have the consistent clarity, the consistent communication, the consistent expectations, and take this accountability without there being any other levels of communication and just being like, here's your 30-day action plan. I'm a huge believer that you have to always point the finger at yourself first as a leader. Like, have I done everything? Have I communicated properly? Have I communicated consistently? Does this person actually know how to win in their role? And when you can answer yes to those 3 questions, then we're looking at the accountability plan.
So this happens in the review. I want to give a little bit of coaching on how you give feedback in public and how you give feedback in private. If this is an issue that you will write them up for at some point, if there's some kind of action plan that needs to be had, this is a one-on-one issue. This is not an in-person group coaching, call something out and we see it. That's a very different thing. Coaching in person in the moment is something that they can take and they can easily implement. Yeah. Hey, I heard you say this word. Instead of saying this word, try this. That's in-person coaching that you do in a group setting. If there is an issue, a behavioral issue, a process issue, something's not getting done, they're not following the code of ethics, something along those lines, that's a one-on-one conversation.
Amen.
So first it would be in that one-on-one, draw attention to whatever the thing is.
Yep.
Because you might hear, they don't even know that that's a thing. So again, I love that you say, point the finger back at you as a leader. Hey, I've noticed that, let's say that they're late, which is a common one. Hey, I've noticed that you're consistently running late. Talk to me a little bit about what's going on. Now, you should have already had these conversations, but let's pretend like you haven't. You've done the thing where you just hope that it solves itself. You hope that it fixes itself, and it didn't. So now we're here. Hear what they have to say, and then this would be where you say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give you a verbal warning. I've noticed this consistently on this day, and this day. Make sure that you're both very clear on, I've noticed it here, here, and here, specific moments, because the employee is going to want an example of that. We have to be able to show an example of where they missed the mark. It can't just be, I've noticed that you're late. Give them specifics. On Tuesday, you showed up at this time. On Thursday, you showed up at this time. We start at this time. My expectation is for you to be here at this time. We've talked about this before. Yep. It continues to be a problem. Consider this your verbal warning. I am putting that in your employee file. Okay. Making a note. We both agree to this. Yes. What's the action plan? So for the next 30 days, what are we going to do to move in the direction that we want to go?
Yeah. To make sure we're not late again in this example. So the one thing I'd add into that is that conversation that you have needs to be emailed in a recap to where they reply with, yep, totally, and get it, agree, because that goes into their employee hand or file as well. So 30 days, what's the plan? The plan is over the next 30 days, there's no more tardiness. There's no more being late. Unless, of course, something comes up like you're sick or whatever. Totally get that communication. But there's no just showing up late because something happened. Or
Hold on, pause. So you brought up in there, if this problem does come back up again, this is how I want this problem addressed.
Yes.
That's a huge thing. Like if you are going to be late, this is what you need to communicate with me and let me know.
That's right.
Because that's another part of this. Like we're holding somebody accountable to not only the action, but the communication if that action can't be met.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah, because I'm just imagining somebody's, because that's typically how, like they just roll in a couple minutes late.
Yeah, I
want
to overly explain this because this is important, because communication is everything.
Yep, so
everything.
30 days, bam, goes by, no late. That's a good thing. That's great. Let's pretend like they're late again. Well, now we actually have a written a write-up. Like, hey, you were late again.
Yep.
This is what I noticed. You're going to get written up. If it happens again, so that's like strike one. If it happens again, here's the action plan moving forward. So this is when you start to outlay now the plan of...
That's strike two. If you've got to the written.
I'm sorry. Yep. Strike two. If this happens again, that is what we're going to call strike three. That's a second write-up, and you no longer will have a job.
Yeah, termination.
Again, this is just an example on somebody who's being late, but I want to put this into a producer as well and actually lay out a plan for you. So this is somebody that's always tardy. Let's pretend we have somebody that's maybe 6 months into their position. They've been hitting goals, and all of a sudden on 1 month, so let's say month 6, they don't even come close. They hit like 50% of their goals. The action plan, great. We're going to set them on an action plan. Hey, for the next 30 days, this is what I saw. Here's the activities. Here were the conversations. Here are the quotes, all the tangible numbers. Here's what I need to see in month 7 for you to continue to work with this action plan. So, hey, how can I set you up for success is ultimately what the first plan is of attack for a producer that's not hitting their numbers. Like, what do they need to do? What are you going to expect out of them in month 7 that they didn't do in month 6 that you believe caused the lack of production or the lack of obtaining or hitting their goals? That's what the conversation. So you're going to create a 90-day action plan. The first 30 days is this. If they do that, great, let's continue to do that. However, if they fall short in those 30 days, then that's a strike. So bam, they've got the verbal warning. Now it's a strike. So, hey, you didn't do what we talked about. We talked about 100 quotes over the month. We talked about X amount of Google reviews asked for. We talked about 3 life insurance conversations a day, and you didn't hit these on this many times. So what this month is going to be about is making sure that you do hold yourself accountable to it. And what I mean by that is this has to get done. This is a non-negotiable because now it's a written to where if you get at the end of this month and you still haven't, so now we would be 60 days in and you're not hitting your numbers and you're not hitting the activities, the next conversation is going to look like, do you still want to work here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do we still have a position for you? I love that you bring up production. I do have a question, and I am going to go back to something and dissect that a little bit more. But let's say that somebody is constantly showing up late, and then we have the conversation, they get it together, that's not an issue. But then there's another issue that comes up. Are we starting them back over and saying, okay, we're going to go through this process again? Or are we like, okay, well, you didn't hit the ball out of the park here, so we had to have a verbal warning with tardiness. Now we're having a verbal warning with production. Like, how does that look for you? Because I feel like most of us don't just have one issue that we're tackling.
For sure.
We have compounding issues.
So for me, that would be a different conversation. That would be a different action plan. But let's pretend like somebody has been written up twice for tardiness. And now they're getting written up for just not a verbal warning. We're talking about actual write-up. I'm of the mindset of if I have to continuously write someone up for something, they're not going to be a good fit in our culture organization and they got to go. So ultimately, depending on, or not really depending, when they get 3 write-ups, I don't care if they're for the same thing or different things.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
And that's going to be communicated. Like, hey, even if it is, like, let's say you did get written up for tardy and you were good this whole month, but then it's like your production just went to the crapper. Yo, like, great job on showing up to work on time, but
yeah.
But now your production is 25% of what it was last month. Like, that's going to be strike 2. Like, that's another write-up. And so that's a really great question. That's just, again, this is no right or wrong, but if I have to continuously write up somebody in my organization, they're probably not a good fit for my organization. And more than likely, they just don't have the courage to leave, and that's okay. So I'm just going to have that conversation with them. But 3 strikes and you're out.
I love that you bring that up because I talk a lot about the standard of excellence that you have within your organization. Whatever your standard is. So like who we are and how we show up. I think every business has to have a standard of excellence. And it's very obvious. I'll just give you an example of 2 different fast food restaurants. If you go to Chick-fil-A, you're going to have one experience. If you go to McDonald's, you have a completely different experience. They sell the exact same product. They have a different standard of excellence, right? So the same has to be true in your agency. What you're talking about is I need to be able to coach and hold accountable consistent behavior. And what we as leaders are always expecting is I need consistent revenue. I need consistent behavior. I need consistent training. We want consistency. It's the chaos, the big swings of like, are they going to be here? Are they not going to be here? Are they actually going to produce? Are they not going to produce? That we are trying to eliminate. And a lot of these, and I say this a lot, facts, not feelings, especially when you're coaching, what are the facts? Because so many times we're frustrated with a person or they're underperforming or there's some kind of emotion. We have to quantify that. We actually have to go, okay, what's the thing that I can coach to that I can actually hold them accountable to?
For sure.
Are they showing up on time? Again, go to your standards of excellence. If you don't have a standard of excellence, I would highly recommend like, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. Whatever your non-negotiables are. Like I talk about being late because that was one of our non-negotiables. Like if you're not early, you're late. Because for us, we know when we roll the phones, when we turn the phones on and we unlock the door, it's like the sign is on. We are ready to go. So we needed moments to get our minds right, to get ourselves together before we had to be on and doing what we needed to do in our careers. But I wanted to kind of hit that point across, because in accountability, consistency is everything. Your standard is everything, and overly communicating is everything. But you also have to have a plan of, if this doesn't happen, then what? If this doesn't happen, what's the action plan?
Yep.
What's the consequence?
Yep.
Because a lot of times again, this is just kind of a rant, but I think it's worth mentioning. We will complain about a problem, but not put as much emphasis on the solution and then the accountability to the solution. So we will complain that somebody's late over and over and over again and not do anything about it. But that person doesn't know, if that's not been communicated, that that's a problem. And I love that you bring up the courage from the employee standpoint, because there are we have conversations all the time. Yep. With agents, with business owners that are getting ready to have a real tough conversation with an employee. And we say this over and over, that we a lot of times are being the ones that have to have the courage to let that position go, because they are not happy in their position, or they're not achieving or doing what they want to do. And they're just too scared to say, I don't want to work here anymore.
Yep.
This isn't a good fit anymore. So again, we have to be the ones that say, I don't think this is a good fit, and place them not necessarily in another insurance agency, but what do they actually want to do? Mm-hmm. Like, pay attention. I think this is where a great leader can really, instead of rehoming, go, hey, you know what? I have noticed that you really excel in this, this, and this. Have you ever thought about a career here, or doing this? Or if there's somebody that really wants to work from home and you're making them come into the office, I mean, this is like having these conversations. So they're not always bad. I think we always anticipate that accountability conversations are bad. They're not. They're usually just airing things out and going, what's the plan?
Yeah, I don't think accountability conversations are actually bad. Like, I wouldn't frame this in your mind as like a tough conversation or a bad conversation. This is a conversation just to make sure that we all are on the same page around expectations, clarity, how to get your production up, show up on time, be a part of that standard of excellence, the non-negotiables, and just make sure we're all on the same page here. And if we're not on the same page, okay, here's how we're going to get on the same page moving forward. Here's going to be the expectations. Here's what needs to happen over the next 30, 60, 90 days. And if this isn't what happens, here is what's going to happen. Like, it's clear cut lines. It doesn't have to be a tough conversation. It doesn't have to be a bad conversation. It's a coaching conversation is all it is. Hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here are the trends I'm seeing. Here's what we need done. Here's what I would like to see from a leadership position you do. And they need to be attainable. They need to be achievable. You need to be able to coach to them. 1, 2, or 3 things that need to be done over the next 30 days. And when you do these, here's what you can expect. And if you don't do these, here's what you can expect. It's not a bad conversation. It's not a tough conversation. It's just a conversation. It's part of being a leader. You have to, like, part of leading people is managing people and showing people and teaching them and coaching them how to be successful. Because as humans, we're going to fall off the rails every now and then.
Yeah.
Period. Like, discipline is hard. Insurance is simple. It is not easy. Sales is simple. It is not easy because you got to be disciplined. And so as a manager, as a coach, as a leader, when you see somebody fall off the rails, hey, what do we need to do to help them get back on the right track? That's it. That's all the conversation is. And most people, if they like their job and what they do, they'll be like, holy shit, dude, I'm so sorry. You're right. This is my bad. I'm going to do this. Like, I want to do this. I just needed a little bit of help. And then you're going to find some that are just like, okay, yeah, yeah. And in 30 days, you're having a totally different conversation with those people. Like, well, this is what I saw. This is what happened. Like, you got 30 more days to get it in gear, or else we're going to be looking for new jobs.
Yeah. I love that you break it down like that. It's just a feedback loop.
That's it.
It's just this is what I'm seeing. Here's my feedback. Where's your feedback? It's just this. I mean, you're playing ping pong back and forth of this is the feedback. This working, it's not working. It's working,
It's
not
like
working.
every other relationship. It takes communication.
Oh my gosh.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And all this is. So while we typically frame accountability as bad, and I used to do the same thing, I hated having these conversations. Once you actually learn how to have the conversation, which is what I'm hoping this is today about, and we've also done some one-on-ones and daily huddles and other podcasts, but I'm really hoping that this is just a conversation around, hey, this is what I'm noticing. What's holding you back? How can I help you? This is what I'm going to need to see. Specifically, this is what I'm going to need to see. This is how you can get there. And when you accomplish this, this is what it looks like at the end of 30 days. And if you fall short or don't do this, this is what it looks like in 30 days. So everyone is clear. We all have a clear vision. We all have clear on expectations. We are good.
Yep.
We're all in this together. We're one big happy family, all right?
Document everything, put everything in files.
Yep.
Make sure you have documentation on if you're going to bring something up or if you're going to have a conversation, you got to document all of it.
Even if it's not right up. As I said earlier, like even if it's a verbal warning, email. I would actually recommend that after every one-on-one, by the way. Hey, this is what we have to just have a template.
Just notes.
This is what we talked about. This is what we did. Da, 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 da.
These are the action steps moving forward.
Yep. Consistency.
Yeah.
That's it. Cool.
So good.
Ooh, so this is how to hold someone accountable. It's the 30, 60, 90-day plan. You can call it the 3 strikes, like whatever you want to call it, but 30, 60, 90. Verbal warning first. Write up number 1 if they don't do it. Write up number 2 if they continue not to do it. And we are helping them find another place to work. Or maybe you're just like, hey, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here, baby. Let's go. So
I love that. You don't have to go home, but you can stay.
And it's a win-win conversation for everybody again. And I'm not going to hit on that again, but everyone needs these conversations. Everyone needs held accountable. Everybody needs a path for success. And everybody needs to know if they're not meeting the expectations because they might be thinking they are and they're not. And that's okay. It just needs to have a conversation. So other than that, that's all I got. You got anything else today?
No, I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway from today was. Again, I'm going to remind you, we've talked about this a little bit. If there's a conversation that you need to have it. Okay? That's my big challenge for you. That's your big action step. But I'd love to know what you got from today's episode. Shoot us a text, 816-727-7610. We really enjoy hearing your feedback from the episodes, how it's helping you, what you're implementing, how you're using it in your day-to-day. We love hearing that. So if you have some feedback from this episode, shoot it our way.
Because it is us. It's not AI. It's not chat bots. It is Michael and Courtney Weaver checking the text message. Baby, let's do this. So as always, y'all know this. And I know we say this. And I never want this to be repetitive because we mean this. Time and attention are by far your most important assets. And we truly appreciate you tuning in and supporting us on the buzz. Again, regardless if it's on the podcast, regardless if it's on a YouTube. We appreciate the heck out of you. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. We hope you enjoy every episode. If there's anything we can ever do for you, reach out. Other than that, go out and make it great.